right, good afternoon. Thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Rachel. I'm with Engineerica Systems. I'm going to be the MC for today's webinar, and I have Dale, our presenter. All right, let's go ahead and get started because I know we have a lot to get through today. Dale mentioned he has a lot of good stuff to share with you all. So welcome everyone to our keynote webinar for the month of October. Before we start, thank you so much. I do want to make sure that everyone knows this session is being recorded, and we are going to be redirecting you to a survey when you exit or when the session concludes, whichever comes first. We do greatly appreciate any feedback that you can provide, and we're going to be sending out the recording within the next couple of business days. Next, I want to quickly draw your attention to the question section of the GoToWebinar menu. If you've already been participating in the icebreaker, then you've already used this. This is also going to allow you to respond to questions that our speaker may have, and then ask them yourself. If your question is more technical in nature, myself or Mark will answer them directly to you. And then if the question is for Dale, we will be taking those at the end, but feel free to submit them at any time and we will flag them to ask at the end. And then again, if Dale has any discussion questions, you can respond there as well. The way GoToWebinar works, you won't be able to see other people's responses, but I will read out questions and all that so everybody can hear that. So welcome to the latest webinar in our Engineerica Education Keynote series. We are very pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation. For those of you who are new to us, Engineerica specializes in academic center management solutions for higher education. You might be familiar with some of our software applications, including AccuTrack, Academia, and AccuCampus. And I want to give a special welcome to any Engineerica clients joining us today. And for those of you not yet clients, I do want to let you know we are offering a complimentary trial of our most popular center management system, Academia. This gives you an opportunity to use Academia for an entire semester risk-free to see if it makes management of your center and your data collection easier. If you're interested, you can send me an email at rachelc@engineerica.com, and I'm going to put that in the chat right now so you can all see that email if you do want to reach out to me. So we started this keynote series for our clients and our contacts who wanted to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. We are still finalizing details for our next webinar, so do keep an eye on your emails and on our social media accounts for an announcement for when we open up registration. So a quick introduction to myself. I'm Rachel Cook. I'm a client success manager with Engineerica and your MC for today. I was previously a learning center manager for 6 years. So like all of you, I am very passionate about higher education and student success. I also have with me Mark Kehoe, one of our technical support specialists, who's here as my backup and also to help with any technical issues that may come up. And I am pleased to introduce you to this month's speaker. Dale Mommer has been in the field of tutoring and academic support for over 13 years, starting as a tutor, then a tutoring coordinator, and now director of the Learning Center at Blinn College. So Dale, we are so pleased to be hosting your presentation today. I am going to go ahead and make you the presenter, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much. My name is Dale Monroe. I'm the director of the Learning Center, and thank you all for being here today. So I'm going to be talking about how to build a successful and engaging tutoring program, and because of how encompassing and that topic is, I'm going to be focusing on 3 specific things, such as hiring, decisions for tutors, how services will be implemented, and then basically preparing tutors to engage with students. And so I just want to introduce about myself, and as mentioned, for my story, that image on the top was what I was taken when I became a tutor. I started as a tutor at Fresno City College, and then I became a tutoring coordinator in August of 2018, and now I'm a director at Blinn College in January 2024. So I have a unique journey because I went from being a tutor all the way up into being a director. So climbing all the way to the top of the mountaintop, so to speak, in this field. And overall, I just loved the tutoring field, and I never wanted to stop. I never wanted to stop being a tutor, and then as I became a coordinator, my emphasis became, well, I wanted to help build a successful tutoring program, use my knowledge as I learned from being a tutor to do that. And then as I became a director, now I want to leave a lasting legacy in my institution. And just kind of go briefly, I've always considered myself a builder. And um, academic support really spoke to me as a professional field. And this was as I was tutoring, and I really loved the experience. And I was really fortunate. I had a mentor named Ray Sanchez, and he sat me down as I was about to go into graduate school and told me this is one of the fastest growing fields in higher education. He kind of gave me a roadmap and said, this is where you could be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And it really spoke to me. And I decided to pursue it. Like, I loved it so much. I said, well, what do I have to lose? And so during and after graduate school, I actively pursued this field. And basically, one of the things I discovered was that as I became a coordinator and beyond, is that every location and every program that I took control of or became a part of, it was a work in progress. I wish I could say that I became a director and the mission accomplished, no further work required, but there's always more that I can do, more that is needed. And so I consider it a work in progress, something to build upon. And even a well-established program with demonstrated sustained success, there's just always more we can do for our students. And so kind of as I was preparing for this presentation today, I was kind of thinking about, when I was a coordinator, what were the biggest challenges I thought they would be? And, with the quality of the tutoring, student satisfaction with the services and resources, and limitations caused by the space itself. That's often one of the biggest ones. We just don't have enough space to do all of our tutoring sessions, and it's always a challenge. But then I thought about when I became a director, in terms of this presentation today, the biggest challenges just related to engagement and for building our tutoring and learning center spaces, and that we're understaffed, we're underpaid, and we're underutilized. And what I mean like underpaid is that primarily the tutors. And I became to call this the 3 U's and must be overcome to create a successful and engaging program. And so this is kind of something that I built upon from a previous conference where I spoke at. And then I've always felt that being understaffed and underpaid was directly linked. And the kind of my inspiration for that previous conference that I did where I talked about hiring strategies for tutors is I wanted to show how the pay was not the reason that individuals became tutors. And again, it became a national problem and issue where we can't hire enough workers to fill the open positions. It's a national problem. But then after the conference, and I talked to some of my colleagues and friends, and we talked about the success I've had in recruitment and hiring tutors. And it's thought that I didn't fully answer the question in terms of why is it a challenge to hire tutors. And so I turned it into a question of what does staff actually want. And in research to that, I kind of identified that most of my tutors were identified as either millennials or Gen Z. And what do younger workers want in the workplace? And a pandemic really opened my eyes to this, and that, in terms of a college student's decision to accept the job, and ultimately what I came, and this is where I also talked to some of my previous, tutors that I supervised in the past, but also my current staff that I'm supervising, is the reason that they gave me is their reason they really wanted to be a tutor was I cared, I wanted to promote, foster, and grow their well-being. Well-being was their priority #1 above any other factor. And so that really opened my eyes. And does my employer generally care about me? Do I care? And particularly, I find that Gen Z in particular have a strong sense of self-agency. They want an opportunity for professional development and improved tutoring service. They want to be more than just about tutoring or for the role that they're hired for. They want a greater purpose in their work. And what I found is it kind of answered my question, is that those who feel in control of their futures are not only more engaged and satisfied, but are more likely to stay with the company for the long run. And so that source on the bottom is where I found it was a recent article, and it really kind of reinforced some of the things that I was thinking about in terms of this presentation today. Because Gen Z is the first generation that is concerned more with job fulfillment than salary. I mean, it's not entirely goes away, but they prioritize it less. And so kind of going back to the image that I showed you earlier for in terms of utilization millennial, it's, being unfulfilled. And so are we understaffed because individuals that are wanting the tutoring position, do they feel it's not fulfilling? And so can we change that narrative and make the job more fulfilling? I say yes, we can. I say that's something we can control and something that we can answer. And so moving on in terms of just addressing staffing and how I've addressed this challenge, a challenge is not just about finding qualified tutors, but for those who want to work for the Learning Center to help their fellow students. And I think that's really important, try to find those who generally are there for the right reasons. And are also have, I'm also wanted to make the position desirable for those that have busy academic schedules, so full-time students. And I also wanted to appeal to top students who instructors would recommend. And so my tutoring experience demonstrated that I didn't always want to work 19 hours a week. I was happy with a minimum number of hours. So I honestly, when I was at University of Idaho, I used the pandemic to test this. And so now when I hire tutors, they always get a minimum number of hours. So when they start, they get a minimum number of guaranteed hours every week. So for most tutors, that's somewhere between 6 and 10. And that really changed the way that I was able to address staffing. And there are weeks also where we have very limited hours for our Learning Center. So for example, the first 2 weeks of the semester, well, we're not really that busy. So we basically start tutoring basically after the second week. And also the last week of the semester, most tutors I found don't really want to work. They have their own finals, their own obligations. So we have very limited staff. And that's just a way of just saving some funds that enhances the budget. And I focused on the position itself and made it more desirable to students based on the benefits of being a tutor, more than any other factor, the benefits of being a tutor. And this allowed me to hire more tutors, since again, now moving forward, most tutors are not working a full 19 hours, they're working around 10. And this allowed for about any budget increase, I could possibly double the number of tutors without any other changes made. And tutors who also do want to work a lot of hours, they are still able to do so. But again, I really look at traffic and need. And so even here at Blinn, there are still tutors who work between 15 and 19 hours, but now it's because they want to do so. They actually want to work the more hours. They don't feel like they have to work more hours. But by adding more staff, those that previously were working more than 10 hours, they can now take a step back and say, I only need to work like 2 days a week, not as much as I was doing previously. And tutors appreciated, again, how I prioritized their well-being that contributed to the decision to accept working the minimum number of hours every week. It was something where they bought into. They did have to buy into it, and they did. And tutors who wanted to work more would often meet with me throughout the semester and explain they would like to tutor more or do more tasks as needed. And they liked a system that rewarded not just merit, but for doing more to attain their hours. So just an example here, Texas A&M is the closest four-year university to Blinn, and they're basically having like a mini break next week where no students are basically going to school Monday and Tuesday. So those that go A&M, I gave them the option, like if you want to work more hours next week, you would be able to do so. And there was 2 individuals that did. They say, okay, I'd like to work basically a couple of extra hours on Monday or Tuesday, and they were able to do so. But again, the tutors are really liking how the schedule is flexible and adaptable to their needs. And then building a team, another issue was the frequency of having to hire and retain tutoring staff after every academic calendar year. And so where I really addressed in terms of staffing is I wanted to create a program where individuals leave primarily when they graduate. So it's a primary reason, or they move out of the area. And so they graduate, are no longer able to continue for that reason. And then even so, as I mentioned before, Texas A&M is the four-year university that's closest to Blinn. And then those individuals that do transfer over to A&M, I still want them to work here in the Learning Center. And I also wanted a system where staff would not have to decide between their studies and the job. And so that's where also having a very flexible and adaptable model has really benefited. And so this is why focusing on tutors being underpaid should also not be where you begin, and focus instead on how you can make it more fulfilling. The job should be something where the individual would want to do it. And I call it the heart of the volunteer in a lot of ways too, because pay should not be the reason someone becomes a tutor or staff member, because honestly, again, we can never pay them enough. And so the pay should be a benefit, but not the reason that they are there. Tutors could take a semester off without penalty. So this is something I instituted where if somebody needs to take a semester off, like they're a junior or senior, but junior in particular, they are taking a really heavy load of class, they could take 1 semester off and they could return in the spring without penalty. They don't have to reapply, they don't have to resign from the position, and could work 1 day a week and still be a tutor. And that's actually something that I've done where the individual, they said, actually, I'd like to take a break for this semester, see how my class load is. But then he discovered, well, actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I can do 1 day a week. And they returned, and they didn't have to go through the hiring process. They were able just to resume their basically right away. But again, I want to emphasize, I've created a system that benefits a tutor's well-being among any other, issue. And so building a team through shared culture. And so this is something that I also want to share because, when I was a tutor, I stayed not because of the job or the pay. I stayed because Ray did one thing I felt that kept me there as an employee. And it's something that, when I became a leader as a coordinator director, I really wanted to bring to my program, starting as a coordinator, now as a director. And it meant for me more of any benefit or mentorship he provided. And so the shared culture that he created at Madeira, for me personally, I was determined to epitomize that shared culture and be a leader of the program. I wanted to demonstrate my grit and passion for tutoring. And so it did start there, my love of tutoring overall. But for Madeira itself, so Madeira, California, it ultimately felt like a second home for me in a lot of ways. I felt like it was a place where it was safe, I belonged, I was able to express myself, all those different things. It was a place where I just genuinely loved being. And so just to kind of share, kind of a story, you might wonder, why is there a chipmunk in armor in this image? So when I became a coordinator in Madeira Community College, it was being recently accredited as a college, and they were looking to create a mascot. And then Ray's suggestion, which we shared as tutors, was let's make a fighting chipmunk as the school's mascot. And so they eventually, it was not just staff, but students were able to put input into the decision. And there were 3 decisions that were chosen. The one that ultimately won was a mountain lion. But then when they sent an email back to basically staff showing, here's going to be the selections that students could vote on, they said, no, there will not be a fighting chipmunk or fighting squirrel for the school mascot. And so we laughed about that because it was meant as a joke. It was meant as something fun. But then we ended up using that in the Learning Center. We ended up using that as kind of like our unofficial mascot. And it really meant a lot to all of us in terms of we used it. We created posters with a fighting squirrel in it. We did a lot of different things with the squirrel. It was just a lot of fun. And kind of like what I recognized when I was at Madeira in particular was that the 3 years that I was there is that it would be the same faces every semester. We had a very low loss of tutors. And it really helped build this culture around us and the staff and so on. It built upon itself. And that was something I wanted to incorporate when I moved on to Idaho and beyond that. And something that I realized is that it has to be a space not just for us, but also for all of our students. And so these are 2 images that came from Madeira. And what's great about this is like the students aren't smiling because we're taking their picture. They're smiling because they genuinely wanted to be there. And what we realized was we create a space where students genuinely wanted to be that would really just reinforce the culture that we were creating. But then I also learned that it has to be both in and out of the classroom. I need to be in the trenches, so to speak, with the students. And so we had a presence in the classroom, but also out of the classroom. So the image on the left, it was Halloween at Madeira, and so since my tutors dressed up, in this case was a Power Ranger, I dressed up as well. So honestly, I didn't really make a very good Han Solo, but I did my part. And the tutors, they really appreciated the fact that I was out there with them. I was out there, I dressed up, I took part, and so on. And so it was just that solidarity that we had with each other. That we were there, we had each other's backs, and all those different things. And I'll kind of end with this in terms of it. It starts with caring, but ends with cakes. And this is something that I learned in terms of the tutors really appreciate when you go out of your way to do something special to commemorate like their achievements and so on. And so, especially when someone who's been with the program for years and then they were leaving to go on to something else. And so in this case, Jordan, it was her last day, so we had a cake for her. And the same thing when I was at U of I, did the same thing for my tutors. And really, it just again showed how we were building that culture. So when I went to U of I in the spring of 2020. This was right before the pandemic, and this was my group of tutors that I supervised that first semester. So it was about 14 tutors. And I met with all of them and explained, this is going to be a work in progress. We're going to be building for the future. And one of the things I caught from the students, but also the tutors, is most of them were either second generation or third generation vandals. There was an expression that they were vandals for life. And so that was something that I incorporated into the tutoring program that I was building there. And I got in those individuals say it's going to be tough. You know, the pandemic was actually coming, which we didn't realize how tough it was going to be. But you know, I asked that each of them make a pledge to stay with the program as long as they could or until they graduate. And all of them made that pledge, and all of them did. They all graduated as tutors at the University of Idaho. And I promised them, if you know, beyond just any success we're going to have with the program, that in 2 years or less, I am going to double the number of tutors using the strategies that I've talked about, like the minimum hour commitment and so on. And I was able to deliver on that promise. Within 2 months, we had doubled the number of tutors, and this is as we were coming out of the pandemic. And so we had the success. It was because the tutors and then later the students bought into the culture that we were building. And you know, this was as we were coming out, we were just building a professional team of tutors who were all here for the same reason. And I assure you, it wasn't for the pay. The majority, if not all of those tutors were there because they wanted to make a greater difference for their college, for their university. And some of the things that I did, you know, is I really focused on connecting the tutor with the class. And so I'll share this. So the image on the left, we created Teton, the tutoring T-Rex, the ultimate social distance dinosaur. And there was no way that that student was going to get the you know, COVID in that costume. But it was something that we did. It was a lot of fun as we were coming out of the pandemic. And the students loved it. It was something where, you know, like the tutor that's standing there, she's cracking up under her face mask and so on. And the tutors that did things like this, the students at the end of the semester, they as we're coming out of the pandemic, they wanted to take a group picture because it was fall of that semester in front of the Christmas tree in the Student Union building. And so we had a group picture with all of the primary students that came and saw that tutor throughout that semester. And it was something that built on itself. The students that were taking advantage of tutoring was because the tutor was going above and beyond to help them, that they were a greater purpose and so on. And it was beyond just any kind of connecting with the tutor. It also was for drop-in tutoring as well, and for appointments where the students were coming into our learning center space in the second floor of the library and building upon this culture that we were creating. And so some of the things that I did just to kind of build that culture, I created polos for the tutors, and I'll be honest, yes, it is next generation themed. I am a nerd, I'll freely admit that. And the tutors love this. As I said before, I'm really focusing on the benefits of being a tutor. And so this one thing brought the tutors more closely together. And this polo, so the polo on the left is what all the tutors got, you know, and then the polo on the right, the red one, was what the mentors got as a leader in the program. And you could only get this polo by being a tutor. You couldn't go to the bookstore and buy it. It wasn't available any other way. And it became such a thing where it really built upon itself, where students would see the tutor walk around in the polo and say, how do I get one of those? And the answer was always, well, you got to be a Vandals tutor. That's the only way to get it. And so that kind of engagement, like there were students who were really engaged just in being a tutor just because they saw a tutor wearing that polo outside of the tutoring center. And personalizing the experience, this is something I also really emphasize. So that image on the right, again, focusing on the dinosaur theme, is don't let your grades go extinct, go to Vandals tutoring. That, when we put that on social media for the Learning Center, the tutoring program at University of Idaho, that was the highest reviewed social media post up to that point, and basically for the academic support. Like more students looked at it than any of the other posts combined for that year. It was that popular. And basically, the point I focused on was personalizing the experience for every student that came to tutoring. It was not just about drop-in tutoring or appointments, but so that students could get to know the students before they ever came to a tutoring session. And so we tried to use strategies that focus on a tutor and allowed for them to personalize the experience in order to connect with students. And I wanted each student to leave the tutoring space, not just benefiting from the tutoring, but enjoy the experience. They want to come back for not just tutoring, but to study and learn. So I'll start with this. I learned that one of my mentors had a bulldog named Bruiser. And once I learned about this, and she shared, pictures of the bulldog, I even got to meet the bulldog. we utilized it in her future tutoring sessions. So from that point on, all the biology and later chemistry sessions adopted Bruiser the Bulldog as their unofficial mascot. The tutors loved it because it showed like how we were expressing ourselves to the students, and then the students who were just like blown away by just incorporating something. I mean, Avery was well known among a lot of the biology and chemistry students at U of I, and so to incorporate that just gave them one more reason to want to go to tutoring. And so just another brief example. So for tutoring, this was kind of like the schedule looked like that we for like a specific day. And what I did to personalize it, it was a simple thing, but I just added the pictures of the tutors. We, for that previous semester, did professional headshots for every single tutor, and then we incorporated that into the promotion. And then it was so successful because now the students could see who the tutor was before they ever went to a tutoring session. And they either had paper flyer where we printed this out, or they would, it would be online as well. And so often they'd come into the tutoring spaces, I want to meet with that tutor, and so on. And that became something we utilize it for all of our materials that we use for tutoring, to engage with students. Flyers, it was a way again of connecting the students to the tutors, and it was very, very successful. And this is kind of the last thing I'll share related just to engaging with students and tutors is during the last year that I was there, we did a contest. We were making a new banner, a new sign. And so both the tutor and the student basically had to sign a form saying, I entered this contest to use this image to promote tutoring services, which would be possibly used for a banner. Well, this is the image that was ultimately chosen. And when both the tutor and the student learned that they were the winning recipient and that it was going to be their image used to make the banner, they insisted on the first day to have their picture taken next to the banner. And when that happened, I really just, again, captured just how we were connecting and engaging with the students. That student, I mean, she was telling all of her friends, like, I can't believe the experience I'm having by going to tutoring. You need to take this out. You need to go as well. And just kind of, again, built upon itself. Beyond that, just for Partners for Success, I really made it a point to also try to get involved with Greek life as much as possible. So the image on the right, I hired a lot of tutors that came from Greek life, and then this is a chapter of Fiji, where over the course of me being there, I hired 5 tutors from that program, and just for their appreciation for all I did for Fiji, they gave me a polo to show how my efforts. And for Greek life, that was important because Greek life is 20% of the population at the University of Idaho. So to reach out, to get them involved in tutoring, encourage students to go to tutoring was just as important as any other things that I was doing. And also too, just getting involved with clubs. So if there was clubs that I was aware of that was definitely had students that were coming to tutoring, I made sure that I was involved as much as possible. And then so benefits beyond tutoring. Again, tutors need to see the larger benefit beyond the role of tutoring and any pay they might receive from doing so. So again, generally get to help people, their fellow students. It's a resume builder. Reference for future professional opportunities. And that's really important. And because I've had countless tutors tell me afterwards, like I never would have gotten this job in private industry or gotten into graduate school had I not been a tutor. Prepare for a career in higher education. Located on campus, so they don't have to travel anywhere. It made it very convenient for them to be a tutor. Priority registration. You have to build something at the college that can have a lasting impact, even when they're no longer a student. The lasting memories, and however, if the tutor finds the role fulfilling, they will have the same experience I had and never want to stop tutoring. And it's the last point I want to say related just to that is when Addie graduated from the University of Idaho, and this is another tutor that was part of the program. They both ended up getting full ride scholarships to the University of Oklahoma for their graduate program. And they loved being tutors. They were Vandals tutors for life, and they got addition to the polos. They had the certificates that was made, all those things. And the first day they were there, they put back on the polos. They went in front of the building that they were going to be graduate students for in the math department and took a selfie and sent it to me and said, even though we're no longer at U of I, our heart is still there. And so this again demonstrated to me the impact that the culture was building, how it meant to them as both students, but also later as tutors, and just what it meant to them. And I think it really does build on itself by doing things like this. And so now that I'm at Blinn, I've implemented the same strategies, and these are our tutors here in the Learning Center. And overall, I mean, as you can see, like we have quite a few tutors. I've actually managed to double the number of tutors since I started here already within a very short amount of time using these methods. And again, it's by focusing on making the position more fulfilling. The tutors who ended up becoming tutors I interviewed, that's what came out. So I wanted a job that would benefit my well-being and so on. And it has resulted in addressing the staffing issue. Now, I do want to go back to this point, because it is an issue. Like at the end of the day, it still has to be addressed in terms of being underpaid. But I'll say again, it's a trap. I generally believe that it's a trap to be kind of stuck on focusing on the pay that the tutors are getting rather than the benefits, rather than making it a fulfilling role. And the way that I've addressed it moving forward is I call it the underpaid challenge. When addressing the issue of staff being underpaid, it's important to recognize that it's based at any level, it's just not enough. We can never pay the tutors enough, to do the role. And so I always looked at the issue not as a problem, but as a challenge to be addressed, as my role as director. What can I do in my role to get the tutors more money? And so that's where I began now trying to address the issue. What more can I do? What else can I do? If I demonstrate higher utilization to leadership, will it support me with more funding? And so far the answer has been yes. But I feel like by leading with utilization, if I'm able to show higher utilization, put the leadership in a position where they have to say no. And then where does my funding come from? Are there opportunities for additional funding from those sources? So I'm just going to give you a snapshot from U of I and some of the things I was able to achieve there when I was a coordinator for 3 years. Is honestly, it started at $9 an hour, which I'll admit that was a joke. But to be fair to Idaho, the minimum wage is $7.50. So they technically could say they were paying more than the minimum wage. So during my first semester there, I just arbitrarily raised it to 10 because the tutors deserve more than that. And so I did that the first semester. First year, they got it up to 10. And then the subsequent years that I was there, I was able to raise it up to 12, and then the mentors would earn 13. So I was able to increase the wages up to that level. And I also was able to use CRLA certifications, for the tutor training program. So as tutors went through that, they also got merit increases. So you get like a 50-cent increase during the first 2 levels, and a $1 increase if they made it to level 3. So that way they're rewarded as they go through the training program, which I think is really critical for success. Now, when I became the Blinn and during my first 90 days, I want to use my experience in getting funding for my tutoring program. But I went into it knowing that utilization is key. I must demonstrate how more staff will result in sustained and prolonged success. Now, for me, it's always been evident. Like if you hire more tutors, you're going to get more utilization. But again, I started with that minimum hours commitment. So I met with all the tutors, both that were currently hired and then basically on the team, and then those that I was adding and saying every week you're going to get a minimum number of hours. But it's a flexible and adaptable schedule. And every one of those tutors fully supported it, fully wanted to be a part of it. And explained to new staff that we are building for the future. Your efforts will contribute to future expansion. And that's on me. It's on me as a leader to build for the future. But to have them take an active role in a part of it, know that we're all in this together. We're building for the future. And I didn't make any guarantees, only promises that I'm going to do everything in my power to get more funding. I'm going to find more funding. If it exists out there, I'm going to find it. And if employees are aware that their efforts can contribute to more funds for the Learning Center, they will work harder because they recognize how their role is contributing to that outcome. And to be clear, like they're not working harder or more hours or doing more because they're hoping that at some point they're going to get paid. They're hoping that we'll be able to hire more tutors and start from there, and then everything else will kind of follow that. That it will be by hiring more tutors, by getting even more staff, we'll be able to serve more students, do more, and possibly that might even result in higher pay, higher hours, and those kind of things. And then when I became a director of Blinn, I really overhauled the position itself. And the thing I really want to highlight is that I changed it from just a student position to a part-time student position. I really want to emphasize the part-time part of this. Because I still hire students, primarily those from Blinn, but I'm also hiring those that attend Texas A&M, the 4-year college that we also directly serve. Most of the students that are going to Blinn at some point transfer over to A&M. So I definitely wanted to be able to still hire those who were previous Blinn students that were now students at A&M. So I made the position part-time. And this was something that I really was passionate about because when I was a tutor, it was honestly one of my challenges getting into this field even as a part-time professional staff, because they didn't recognize my student experience as a tutor as actual professional experience. And so now here at Blinn College, the title is Learning Center Tutor, and it will show on their resume as a professional experience. So for those here on my staff that do want to go into a professional role in higher education, this will prepare them that entry-level role to help get them there. And I made it $15 an hour. So they're making $15 an hour to work here as a tutor. And that's also significant. Like we are, to be clear, it's still not, we're not matching what private industry is able to pay, but we're now at least competitive. And it has made an impact. Tutors have appreciated that. And it's made it so that, again, it's now just a benefit. It's a benefit of being in the role. And again, I want to make sure we're competitive for sure here at the college. And I'm not really competing with private industry. I don't want to compete with private industry like McDonald's and Walmart and so on, because I can never match their wages. And then they had the benefits of being a tutor. So I think the biggest benefit came out of the whole revamping the position was every tutor gets a free parking permit. It's the same permit that I get. And for a student, that was a $400 value. And that was really significant. Like they couldn't believe that now they were not going to have to pay to park. And it made it, I don't promote that to anyone who becomes a tutor. It's something they learn after the fact, but it really is an additional benefit from being here. They get the same discounts that I do throughout the college, and also priority registration, but not just here, they also get it at Texas A&M, which is a big deal. They get priority registration at A&M. So there's about 70,000 students that attend A&M. So to have any kind of advantage to get classes they want, that does matter. I onboard any tutor that's part-time 10 days or less. And that's a big deal too, just because now I can onboard them very fast. They could be working within 2 weeks from the moment that we start basically the hiring process. And regardless, again, I'm always emphasizing it's a fulfilling position and the benefits over salary. One of the things that I did here when I came to Blinn is I really wanted to work with instructors to get instructor referrals. I wanted them to be a part of the hiring process and part of the recruitment process. I wanted to get their best and brightest students to be tutors. And I went over the benefits with the instructor of being a tutor. So that we were all on the same page. What does this tutor, what does a student get for being a tutor? And then the instructors just didn't email me a list of students, but those that were their top candidates, they actually walked them over to the Learning Center, gave them a tour of the Learning Center. I got to meet with them and talk to them more about the position, answer any questions that they had. And that was significant because most committed to apply after that same day, if not that same week. And we had 10 open positions going into the fall, basically at the end of the spring semester. And within 2 weeks, we had 21 applications submitted. I had to shut it down because we had so many applications coming in that we weren't ever going to be able to fill all of the, basically we wouldn't be able to hire them all. And then even when I returned for the fall, I still had open positions, so I opened it up again. And on the first day, 8 students applied that wanted to be involved with this. And so the word was spreading. The word was spreading among the students that this was something that I genuinely wanted to be a part of. And the vast majority applied. They did not do so for the paycheck, but because they genuinely wanted to help their fellow students. And the salary that they received was additional benefit of doing so. Like there was one interview where the student thought that it's like a voluntary position. And I said, no, this was the rate that you're going to get paid, $15 an hour. And I said, well, I would have done this for free. I said, well, I appreciate that, but no, you're going to get paid for all the tutoring that you do here in the Learning Center. And I've always considered this one of my strengths, to be honest, in terms of recruiting. And I just want to share also with you some of the things that I do that I think has had a great impact of getting top students, and students are getting A's and B's in their classes to apply. And I feel like I don't recruit, but I have good conversations with students about the position. And I do tabling events and I do things about the semester, design, to promote, hiring for the Learning Center. But by having a conversation with students that come up to me and talk about it, I think is the most effective way. They're hearing it in the classroom, but they're also hearing it in the Learning Center. by having that good, the student's interest is piqued. Like they've never heard it in that context before, in terms of a pitch, for example, of a role that someone's recruiting them for a job. And so they really appreciate it, kind of that one-on-one attention. I'm answering all their questions. But I do make the ask. I ask the student to apply. And if they indicate they will, I'm very transparent. I go over the timeline. It's of when they need to apply. The process, it's open to everybody. I'm not guaranteeing them that they're going to get hired as a position, but it's very competitive. Please apply. You will be considered. And we do go through all those applications, and every single one of them, they are considered equally. And I do want to talk about this, and EVP stands for Employee Value Proposition. And though I don't like using business terms, in terms of like what Fortune 500 companies use in terms of, for recruiting top employees, they do understand I feel like Tutor understands what they get for what they give. So that's why I really focus on the benefits, because I really want the Tutor to understand that what you get out of this are the benefits and fulfillment of doing so. And then the individual has to ask at the end of the day, is my EVP hire as a tutor rather than working at McDonald's? So I also do reach out what I call homegrown talent, where tutors, they do refer students that are coming into the tutoring center, but they still have to go through the process. They also have to get the instructor recommendation, and they'll go through the entire process that any other applicant would go through. But I think it is important to try to recruit from those who are already utilizing our learning centers. I already know what we're about. So how will services be implemented? And I want to start with this image because, again, to show that kind of the impact that the shared culture is having just here on Blinn within such a short period of time. So one of my tutors, that is an Aggie, that is the mascot of Texas A&M. And during her first week she was there, basically at her own time, she made an Aggie. And this Aggie gets passed around the Learning Center. It's at different places. It shows up, and it's kind of like a fun thing that we have just to incorporate that identity. And it's just one more thing that just kind of shows the buy-in that we're seeing from the culture of tutors that's coming here in Blinn. And services at the Learning Center are also dependent on sufficient staff and building a culture of gritty individuals who want to do more for the college. And once that's achieved, and something that I've done here and kind of help build that is, are you all in with Blinn? And when I ask a tutor that, are you all in with Blinn, they usually respond, I am all in with the Blinn Learning Center. And so things like that, things that we do just in terms of engagement and getting students be like all in, like I'm 100%, like I'm gonna do everything I can to help build this and make it grow and develop. And so what I try to do as a director is I do anything and everything that benefits the students, all students. I try to implement strategies that benefit everybody. And does the need of the service justify implementation? Because there's a lot of, instructors, for example, will say, I wish there was more support for this class, or there's different services that we can provide that we hear as wants, but does the need actually follow the want? And so I do look at it in terms of need and try to see if the need, if I implemented, for example, ETC or simple instruction, would that justify implementation? And then find creative and innovative ways to connect with students on a daily and weekly basis. So we had, like, at the beginning, the first month of the Learning Center, we had what's called a calculator workshop, where students could come in and learn about their graphing calculator. And that was really successful because students came in and learned basically things they were not aware of how to use their calculator. It didn't cost us anything to do. And so if it costs us nothing or next to nothing, do it. Do things that are different. Try to implement different things. So get students to capture that interest. And then make it fun, but also keep any activity or promotional event educational and beneficial to students. So I think one of the things that I'll just share, but it seems like always students enjoy, are things like scavenger hunts, things like that, things that encourage them to get more involved and like immersed by actually having to search for something specific related to a Learning Center resource and so on. And let students see how much you care and want to help them. That is so important. Like if they genuinely see, like, I am here to help you, I can see how much you care, they generally want to come back. They really appreciate that. Now, there's no getting around this. You do have to have both quantitative and qualitative data at the end of the semester to share leadership. So things that you are working on, things you do to do more. I honestly believe that the qualitative is just as important, if at times not more important than quantitative, especially if you're trying to do something new where you have no data to show that's, for example, a certain service will get students to come, such as a calculator workshop. But by doing something with a qualitative assessment, the quantitative data is significant because it shows the results. It shows here's how many students came, here's how long they stayed for a tutoring resource. So quantitative data reinforces and strengthens any qualitative approaches you take. And be prepared to do more to get more. And that's something that I've been very successful. It's something that I've been trying to do related just to all of the services here at Blinn. And just to go over just general tutoring services at Blinn, is that, for our current tutoring services, we have drop-in tutoring, we have appointments, appointments that students can schedule that could be both in person or online. And then just to give you just a rough data for the previous semesters, we had about 1,000 visits with service as it currently existed. So that was the utilization prior to me coming here as a director at Blinn. And resources also, just so you're aware, we also have we have over 80 computers that students could use to study and print from, and then also they can check out graphing calculators and scientific calculators. They can have them for up to 24 hours. So in terms of things that I've done related just to expanding tutoring services, because again, I want to be able to show more and do more as a way of being able to ask for more funds. The first role that I want to share with you is academic success peer mentor. So this is something that I work with leadership to build and create. It's a role that I established for a tutor. It's a new role that they would have as an academic success peer mentor. This is a peer mentor role where a student meets with a student, not just to tutor, but to provide academic support, such as test-taking skills, note-taking strategies, all those different things. And if the student still needs professional assistance beyond what the tutor can provide as a mentor, that's when they meet with myself or a full-time learning assistant. That was when we went to ACTP and got certified as academic coaches. So we can provide that additional professional assistance if needed. And so the tutor has provided the additional training to be a mentor. And that's provided through the college. And if they're put into the role, they're now paid $18 an hour. And it's been already approved. We're going to have a $25,000 grant, which will pay for this. So starting in the spring of 2025, we may do it earlier because currently I'm training the tutors who are going to be involved with this project. But by spring of 2025, we're really intending a full rollout of this service. And this tutor can still tutor. It's part of the agreement, like the tutor can still tutor during the time, but when a student comes in and needs the peer mentoring support, the tutor will provide that. And what this will ultimately allow us to do is I will be able to hire between 4 and 8 more tutors. So just this one thing, I was already able to increase the number of staff and obtain additional funding. And grants are a good way, by the way, of trying to find that funding. What grants are out there that you might be able to use to expand your tutoring resources? Now, this is what I want to share with you. It's called Extend the Class in ETC. It is a model of supplemental instruction, and it's where basically for specific classes, for specific instructors and classes they teach. Now, I went into the semester with no additional funds for this. So this is something where I made the case where I thought this would really benefit the students using an SI or supplemental instruction model. Blinn College, prior to me coming here, had no supplemental instruction, no group collaborative learning environment sessions, any kind of group sessions at all. It was all one-on-one, whether it was drop-in or appointments. And I basically was able to get a commitment from leadership that if by the end of fall of 2024 and also the spring of 2025, if I could show both qualitative and quantitative data of the effectiveness of this, it could make a case for asking for an even larger general budget for the next academic calendar year. And basically, I started with the green light with 1 ETC leader for the spring. And by the fall, I had 5. And so by the results for the first ETC leader, I was able to now move it to 5, which I'll have even more data and qualitative results to share with leadership. So ETC is not something that I invented. ETC, I learned it from Ray Sanchez, my mentor from Madeira, who had created a model of supplemental instruction called ETC. And so at Fresno City College, he was supporting, for example, these 3 sections with ETC. And the data from that showed we were looking at retention, we were looking at students completing the class, and so 70% of students that did ETC for those particular sections completed the class. And so here was the data that I needed in order to show, like, this has worked at Madera and Fresno City, let's do it here at Blinn. And my model for ETC, because I took Ray's model, I met with Ray throughout this process, talked about how I was going to implement it. That's different than what he was currently doing and previously doing. It's still the ETC leader must have previously taken the class from that instructor. There's no getting around that. They must have taken it. And if for example, a different instructor, one is an ETC leader, they're going to have to provide the referral to get that ETC leader for their class for the spring. So the instructor has to be involved in this process moving forward. They have to be involved in helping us find the tutor or ETC leader that's going to support their class. The ETC leader is embedded with the instructor, not the class. That's a difference. I don't have the ETC leader sitting in the class for the class period. They are embedded with the instructor and the sections. So they meet with the instructor regularly and so on, but they're not sitting in the class. They've already taken the class. They got a high A and the instructor recommendation. The ETC leader, because of the 6 to 10 hour minimum commitment, can technically support 2 different instructors. So the returning ETC leader from the spring who successfully completed it said, I want to do both biology and chemistry, the intro for biology and now the general chemistry. And she was able to move forward with that and stay under the 19 hours. And there can be multiple ETC leaders supporting the same section. And what I've done for this semester is I have the one ETC leader and the second is the ETC learner. So one of the challenges of like an SI pass model, or which is the most famous of some instruction, is what happens if you lose that SI pass leader for the semester? You don't have a plan B or a backup. Where in this situation, like let's say the ETC leader is sick or has to step out for even 5 minutes, the learner then steps into the role and can basically fill in as needed. No interruption of services. The students are still getting the support that they need. Still prepare for each session so that the ETC leader does prepare for those sessions. And they also meet with their instructors regularly. There are set sessions scheduled every week. I call it ETC Prime, where every week there's ETC Prime, but there are special sessions that can be scheduled throughout the week for like things like exam reviews, so on. It's designed to be a very adaptable and flexible model. It's based upon not just when the ETC leader can have sessions, but the students can say, actually, you know what? I'd like to try to meet at a different day and time. We can do that. We can do that with this model, as long as a tutor or ETC leader has the availability to also do it. And as I mentioned, like the hours are flexible, and we have changed them throughout the semester based upon student need. And the ETC leader, though this doesn't happen very often, it's often the learner that takes this role, but they can still hold appointments. They can meet with that individual for a one-on-one meeting if needed. All is designed so that ETC leader, if they do want to work more than 10 hours, they can. Designed so that the students are getting a really adaptable and flexible model. And in my part of it, beyond just providing the training for the ETC leader, is I track the attendance and inform the instructors weekly. So I'm a big proponent of flyers. I think flyers is, other than doing things on social media, is one of the best ways of informing students. So each ETC leader or leaders gets a flyer, which is put in the hand of every student taking part of this. They know what the hours are, where the classrooms are, and so on. And just to share you some data from what we've seen from the spring is that the first semester we implemented this, 41 students over the course of that semester attended. And basically, of those, 32 students went between 5 and 8 times. The average test score of those 5 to 8 students was 81.9. So they were getting an average of B or higher for every exam. The students that never came at all, the average score was 74.6. So we were actually able to show, again from the data, that students that came to ETC did average 1 grade higher and completed the class, compared to students who never came at all. And then surveys, I think qualitative, I really relied on surveys. So we had 18 surveys that were returned, and I was able to get a 90% over on the last test. I felt more confident about the class after coming to ETC. I understood the course better. I felt more prepared. I felt very prepared and did better on the test. But the thing that really isn't shown, other than the pictures that I take of ETC, is just how positive those sessions are, how the enthusiasm, the energy that comes in those sessions the tutor really goes above and beyond to help those students. And then so surveys so I don't have any data that I was prepared to show for this talk, but I do want to share some of the surveys that we've already received for fall of 2024. And we're seeing the same thing. The student felt prepared. They felt ready to take the test. They felt so much better and more confident going into the test, and I felt better than I expected. And students reported afterwards that I did better on the test than I was expecting to do so, and they really attributed ETC to that. I felt more confident about the material after coming to ETC. So impact of additional services this fall, and I am prepared to share some data just to show the effectiveness of the services, just on making those small changes. By result of hiring more tutors, it's done the following. So within the first 4 weeks, we have a total visits of already 1,046. That's already matched more than any previous semester that we've had for tutoring. The ETC does play a big factor into that, but it's just because we have more staff, we have more tutors, and so the visits are increasing as a result of that. Students are taking advantage of it more because we have just more resources to have to take advantage of. And for students, we are also tracking how many students are coming in to use computers to print or to check out calculators, and so far we've had 2,052 visits. More students are just overall coming into the Learning Center because, again, we're doing more. And now, as I was preparing for this yesterday, I do want to share this brief ETC story. So as I was preparing, I was practicing this presentation, I had an ETC leader say, and I thought I heard 15 copies of a study guide that she was about to do for a session. So I go to the copier, I'm printing it up, I make sure it's stapled and has, because she likes also to be hole punched so the students can put it in the binder. So I go to her session outside the classroom, and she's standing outside the classroom. At first I think something is wrong, and so I handed her 15 copies, and it turned out she said 50. She needed 50 copies, and she had filled that classroom completely with the students who were taking advantage of the ETC session that day. And that was just the first session. And she basically did it again for the second session. She literally did need 50 more copies, because I think the total was 58 students overall in those two sections came to ETC. And so it just demonstrated like the energy in the room and so on. It just really expanded upon itself. And I just wanted to share that story because it, again, just showed how students were buying in to what we're doing. They're engaged, coming for tutoring, but then doing something more like this just gives students one more reason to come take advantage of tutoring resources. And so again, I apologize, I am a nerd. And so when I was wanting to kind of conclude this presentation by talking about how to prepare tutors to engage with students, I had to give a next generation, theme of engage. And things like this, again, that I share with tutors is just another way that I also connect, build that culture in my learning center. The tutors are all aware of these things, but I'm a nerd and I love Star Wars and Star Trek. So I hope you don't hold it against me, but I've now shown images of both Star Wars and Star Trek in the course of this presentation. But my goal is when I became a director, and even as long as a coordinator, was I wanted to better prepare tutors to actually tutor. A lot of times tutors are put into the role and they don't have much experience, if any, in terms of how to engage with students. And to be clear, I still use CRLA standards to train with the tutors. However, at the end of this presentation, I am going to briefly go over an alternative, if in terms of also how to train tutors for your tutoring program. And then reinforce and strengthen a tutor's knowledge of the material through tutoring. Foster a love of learning more than anything else. And our college knowledge expert. That's a term that I learned from Ray, but also my goal is that the tutor by the end is they are college knowledge experts. It's not just that they're a master tutor, but they could honestly step in and teach a class or inform students of a resource at Blinn College just as well as I can. And so I think it really starts with identity, and this is something that I learned over the course of being from a coordinator to a director. And students who come, in terms of being staff and tutors, come and learn, they must in some way identify with the service. It's honestly not just enough to change the culture. They must also identify with the Learning Center. Otherwise, why should they go? How does this benefit me? And so where does that start? Does it start with the service itself? Does it start with the quality of tutors or the resources? In the end, I think the students must believe the following. It's not the Learning Center, it's my Learning Center. That's not my tutor, or it's not the tutor, it's my tutor. Putting the I into the experience. That is somebody who I can directly relate with. It's somebody who I feel comfortable going to see and who I want to meet with on a daily basis. It's breaking that, because tutoring does have a negative stigma attached to it, where I've seen students, for example, walk up to the door and about to go in, and then for whatever reason, they decide not to go because of a negative stigma they might have had, or maybe a previous negative tutoring experience. But the moment that they can start to personify the experience, and then I think that when the student believes that this is their resource, that they start to associate the space and most familiar tutor as their tutor. They don't want to go anywhere else other than to the Learning Center. And so I'll admit Steve Jobs is one of my inspirations for this. The computer revolution that he helped, create. I would argue that one of the reasons that happened is because he turned a computer, like it wasn't a computer, it was an iMac. And then later with phones, it wasn't a phone, it was an iPhone, it was my phone. By putting myself and connecting it to that product, it would make me want to go buy Apple every time I needed a new computer or a phone. And so using that kind of mentality, I've tried to apply that to students engaging with tutoring. I want them to see it's their resource. I want them to see that we are here for you. This is something that you benefit from. How can we make it better for you? And so coming back to where it starts, I really do think it does start with the tutors. However, the quality of tutors does impact it, but it could be anything really in terms of forging that identity, showing that more, and so on. And subject knowledge, kind of thing I think is really important, where the toolbox that the tutor has, when they're hired to become a tutor, it's what they've gotten A's and B's in classes. And I've kind of enhanced that, where I'm looking for top students. I want the best of the best. And instructor referrals are invaluable to identify the best students and provides collaboration to get the quality tutors for the Learning Center. And so that really helps in terms of strengthening that. And I want tutors that want to master the material. I want tutors that are here because they want to be experts in chemistry or biology, and really are doing this because they need to master the material for what they're doing as a professional sense, whether it's going to medical school or so on. And training and professional development here is key, because it really does help turn the tutor into a master tutor. And so a comprehensive training program, I think, is really critical to achieve that. And then program knowledge. My goal is to train not just a master tutor, but train a mentor and future leader in higher education. I really want individuals who, they're considering a career in higher education. They want to be future teachers, and dare I say it, maybe future coordinators. They want each tutor as it goes through the program to gain a deep philosophical understanding of the material. I want them to truly love it the way that I loved history. I want them to really, really love and get enmeshed in it. So college knowledge experts, they understand the tutoring resource as well as I do, and college that students can take advantage of. And the more knowledge that a tutor has, and not just the tutoring, but of the services, the more likely a timely solution will be found. And so I think that's really key. It's important in terms of the program knowledge. You're not just focusing on creating future master tutors, but just future educators and how they can really utilize the resources in this program. Learning environment. Tutors have a space where they can prepare and review the material that they are tutoring. It's like, I think that's really a part of it. And we have all the resources that the tutors need to be prepared, but really foster a love of learning through collaboration, discussion with the peers and so on, and faculty. I really do believe in creating a structured service. Everything about it is structured, whether it's now ETC that I'm doing, the drop-in tutoring appointments. But it is flexible and adaptable in how we can serve a student's needs and how it's implemented. I think that's really important. Overall, it promotes a diversity of ideas and encourages tutors as they gain experience to suggest program improvements and service. I want to hear from my staff. I want to hear from tutors. How can we make this even better than it currently is? What more, again, can we be doing? And it builds overall self-confidence for both tutors as they have successful sessions with students, and from students as they learn and master the material. So just engaging with students, I just want to give just some quick some tips in terms of how tutors can better engage with students. And I've honestly found that by the tutors learning the student's first name and using them regularly, that really is one of the best ways of getting that engagement. Students on surveys, I've seen this on countless times, say, I really appreciate how that individual got to know my name. And being able to do that is critical because students, again, I think really appreciate that. It really gets them to want to come back more than I think any other factor, especially for drop-in tutoring. Share with the student strategies they use while in the class to do well, so that basically don't just focus on just tutoring, focus on other things you can do. Discuss a student's major, share your experiences, relate to class, and always go back to the major. Be proactive and have the tutor reschedule the appointments. So we have a system where the tutor can actually reschedule their own appointments. And so that allows for the student to actually say, okay, I'll be same time next week or a different day and time. And the tutor really appreciates it because then they can plan their week for the next week and be even more prepared. Ask open-ended questions whenever possible. Be positive throughout the session with the student. You know, positivity, the power of positivity, energy is critical. Let the student see how much you love tutoring and honestly want to be there. The power of positivity cannot be understated. It can be the difference, honestly, in the student succeeding in a class or dropping out of it. I've seen just time and time again, the power of positivity, the energy, all those things. And then just build the student's confidence during each meeting. You know, when the student says, you know, I feel like I material better, I got this. And at some point, the student says, you know what, I don't need to come to tutoring as much. You know, that's a huge victory. Right, and then this is the last thing, you know, that I just wanted to briefly touch before I get to my conclusion. As I mentioned, like CRLA is currently the major program for certifying tutoring programs. However, starting in March of 2025, there is going to be an alternative for those who are looking for an alternative to CRLA. A new certification program that certifies coordinators to train tutors and also certified tutors. It's through the Association of Coaching and Tutoring Professionals. It's different than CRLA because it focuses on individuals rather than programs. And I'll just open and transparent, I'm a part of the team that's building the certification program. And we want to create an affordable alternative to CRLA. So if you are looking for an alternative to CRLA or an affordable alternative, that's what we want to have. And that way you can choose if this might be a better fit for your program or institution. The coordinator will first need to be certified by ACTP, and the certification for the first few years will be done at the conference. There will be a small fee to be certified, but from what I understand, it's going to be less than $100. And the thing that, you know, as part of my condition, you know, as part of this project, is that any tutor that's certified in level 1, it's free. The tutors don't have to pay anything. I think that's a pretty big deal. The tutors that go through the training don't have to pay anything for that first level. And it's really designed for those tutors that didn't want to go on to like the level 2 or level 3 to create master tutors and then mentors. Then that would be a small fee attached to that. But for this, the level 1, especially when a tutor is just learning, we think it should be as close to free, if not free, as possible. So for tutors, it's going to be free. The program is designed to train a new tutor to become not just a master tutor and mentor if they get up to level 3, but a leader at your institution. We want to create future leaders, not just tutors. So for further details of the certification, it will be released soon on the ACTP website. And also their conference again is in March 2025. I will say this, it is held in Orlando, Florida this year and in March of 2025. So Orlando, Florida, that's a great place. It's a fun place. So an additional incentive perhaps, you know, to come check out this certification program. But, you know, check it out. It's going to be on the ACTP website soon. So to kind of recap, you know, I want to just focus on utilization one more time. You know, it was the top of my pyramid. You know, my goal by hiring more tutors is by create a fulfilling tutoring position first and foremost, and that will demonstrate utilization. And then by doing so, I feel like I'll be able to do the following. Justify any future pay increases. You know, when I'm able to do more and then show more, I'm hoping that leadership will see that, hey, we need to increase funding to even get even more results, to continue to grow this and build it. I'll be honest, in terms of just my overall budget, I'm trying to get a higher general budget. You know, just general budget, I just have more flexibility of how I can use those funds and even do more. I did help in recruitment, you know, because when students see and are active, they are adding actively. They're an active participant. So I really want students to see what we're doing and want to be a part of it and be actively involved in that process. Like I want to be, are you in with Blinn? I want to be able to answer yes, and how can I be a part of this? Instructors and leadership see the difference the tutoring program is making. Students report high satisfaction with the quality of the tutoring resources, always a primary goal. And then, you know, at the end of the day, I want the tutors themselves to see how their individual efforts are contributing to a greater purpose. I want them to have the same experience that I had at Madeira, and I want them to see, like, just have positive memories. I did that. I was a part of that. I made this a better place. So thank you very much. Thank you very much all for being here today. At this point, I will open up any general questions you have.
All right, Dale, thank you so much. First of all, not at all a problem to have Star Trek on there. I'm a big Trekkie myself. And I also, want to mention, Orlando's great. Our company is located in Orlando. Hope to see some of you at the CTP conference. We are hosting a conference ourselves in a couple weeks. I didn't mention that up top because I know we're pretty much last minute with that. But if anyone is interested, I'm going to go ahead and paste the link to that in the chat below in just a second there. But we do have a question coming in from Elaine, who wants to know, what does being a mentor include? And if anybody does have any questions, and Corliss, yes, we just got a question asking if the presentation slides are going to be made available. We will include that with the recording. So Elaine asked, what does being a mentor include? If anyone else has any questions, you can put those in the questions box and we'll get to as many as we can.
Okay, yeah. I'll just go see if I, oh, it's gonna take me a while to go back to the slide. So the question about from the academic peer mentor role. And one thing I want to be clear too about that role is it's optional for the staff that's currently tutors. So tutors who don't want to do that are not going to be required to do that. This is designed for tutors who do want to do something more beyond just what they're currently doing for tutoring, and we'll give them an opportunity to provide an additional resource. So it's not going to be made a requirement for the tutors to do it. I was able to get, first off, an increase. It's going to be $18 for those who go into the role. They will be provided training in terms of the peer mentor role. And what I've just found from the research to begin is from that mentor to basically that peer-to-peer perspective. Students respond more positively to a peer than, say, if it was myself that was trying to help them with, like, say they need test-taking strategies or note-taking skills. And so the peer will be able, like the tutor will be able to meet with their fellow student and help them through, if it's math literacy, for example, strategies that the tutor used in order to do better and better understanding the material. And then also go over things like note-taking strategies, test-taking skills. And I'll just share this in terms of the training that we've been providing for tutors who are interested in doing this for the spring, is that there's a great book called, I'm going to focus on math in terms of for providing that peer mentor role, it's called Winning at Math. Again, that title of the book is called Winning at Math. And it does a great job at kind of showing how students, in terms of, it's a very short book, it's about 150 pages, it's 6 chapters, but it's laid out in the ways of how somebody, whether it's myself or even a tutor, could help students improve overall in math. All skills, whether it's reading the textbook, taking tests, distance learning, all those factors. And so it's designed to be something where the mentor is helping their peer improve in those areas. Now, the reason why it's not like an academic coach role, like it would be something that I'm certified to do as an academic coach, is because there are some things that the tutor may not feel comfortable helping the student with. And when that arises, it could be something where the student just generally needs additional assistance beyond what the tutor has been trained to do. It needs to be more of a counseling session. Could be a lot of different factors. But that's where a full-timer or myself would step in and provide professional academic coaching support. But the peer mentor is a way of students kind of starting that process of getting the additional help that they need. Because a lot of times what I've been finding, just from my experience doing this, is that, I'll just use high school. So there's a lot of students that are graduating high school now that they're not ready to take math classes. They don't have the prerequisites they need in order to take a specific math class. And so students are falling behind because they don't have the prerequisites they need in order to do well. And so this is designed a mentor to partner with that student to help in those prerequisites. But I think it needs to be more than just about tutoring. What we're finding is that the students who need the assistance also does need things like note-taking skills, test-taking strategies, all those things. I hope okay.
Great. So we did have another question come in. Let me just read it really quick so I understand. Okay, so Steve wants to know, if I understand correctly, your institutions have mainly had student tutors. In my current role, we have both professional tutors, those with at least a BA or a BS, and student tutors. Could you discuss some similarities or differences you've observed between primarily having student tutors versus a mixed model like my school has?
Yeah, I think, so I'll just be open. My preference has always been to have student tutors whenever possible, especially students that previously were at the institution. So I'll just be open and transparent by saying that I've recruited primarily here at Blinn, but also at A&M. And I've hired A&M students, even there's one tutor that never went to Blinn. They just came, they just have always attended A&M. But I think the most key thing, whether it's a professional tutor or a student tutor, is that they're able to relate to the student. The student can relate to them and they can relate to the student. Having that peer-to-peer role is critical. Now, I will say this too, because I have experience supervising individuals who were professionals. Individuals, for example, that were former instructors. Like they retired, but they still wanted to do something after they retired, so they became tutors. I have supervised. And also individuals who were maybe in private industry at some point, but then came back and wanted to tutor. I guess a challenge with that group of tutors is I found that in terms of retention, like my goal is to have somebody who's with the program a year or more. And I'm not saying that somebody who is a former instructor or a former professional will be in the field for 1 year or more, but I really think that in order, in terms of keep building that team, it has to be a group of individuals that will be with the college for a year or more. And I find the best opportunity to do that are for those who are either currently enrolled or actively enrolled as students at a college. In terms of, I guess the last thing I'll say related just to professional tutors, I think it's harder also in terms of, because one of my things I was presenting on today is that you want to make the role as fulfilling as possible. With professional tutors, I think it's more challenging for them to see the benefit as fulfilling in terms of some of the things I discussed in terms of why a tutor that is currently on my team sees the role as fulfilling compared to somebody who's a professional tutor who might not be there for those same reasons. So it is effective. I think professional tutors definitely have a lot of wealth of knowledge that they can share with the tutors. But again, I'll just say my preference has always been to try to hire students, current students, whether it's here at Blinn now or at A&M.
All right, and I'm not seeing any other questions, so let's just let's just give it another minute and see if anyone else has any. Again, you can put those in the questions box. And just while we're waiting, I want to, I see right here. Okay. Okay, so this is from John. He says, I have a practical question. We know fostering culture is important. What's your suggestion for a program with a large number of tutors? How do you manage to get all tutors to meet up at once or even mingle in a meaningful way? That's a good, difficult question, I think.
Well, I have experience with this from U of I, because at one point there it was 60 tutors. But I know there are programs out there that have hundreds of tutors. And so my suggestion would be to create, I'll just say, cohorts. Get all the math tutors to come together. Get all the chemistry tutors to come together. So that's what I did at U of I, is I had like basically a cohort of chemistry tutors, and found a time every week where they would come together. Doesn't have to be, honestly, doesn't have to be every week, but at U of I, they would meet regularly to come together and to discuss tutoring, discuss what's going on, to get prepared, ask questions, build that camaraderie. And so that's what I would suggest, is to find ways of getting the team together throughout the semester and break it down And even though I focused on trying to get like all the math tutors and all the physics tutors and all the chemistry tutors and so on to come together, but honestly too, it could be all the tutors that work that day to come together. It could be all the tutors that, as long as your schedule is the same. So try to find a way of trying to breaking it down. So like maybe you have a group of, if it's 100 tutors, for example, try to narrow it down to like 15 or 20 in each group and have them meet together regularly, have them join with cohorts and things like that, where they're regularly interacting with each other to build that solidarity, build that culture with each other. And then overall, though, in addition to that, I do find training is a great resource to do that, because I'll be getting like the beginning of semester training, where usually, at least here from the university I don't on, it's like a mandatory training where all the tutors have to attend. And so that's also a great way of getting the students to come together, meet each other, get to know each other, and then build it from there. And that's the last point that I'll just say related to things I've done in the past is I also try to have an end of semester celebration. And so, you know, in the semester where we celebrate our success, and then the tutors come to that, you know, well, again, gets that camaraderie, get that collaboration. So the group pictures that I showed, by the way, that was from U of I and also at Blinn, that was from our basically our beginning of semester training, where we had all the tutors that came together. And there are activities that I scheduled throughout the training designed, you know, for the tutors to get to know each other and learn more about each other.
All right. And again, that was the last question we had come in. John said, thank you, very helpful. So I am going to kind of talk a little slowly just in case we have more questions come in. But I do want to remind everybody about our upcoming conference and about the survey that you'll be asked to take once the session concludes, or if you have to leave before then. And Dale, I do want to thank you so much for the generosity of your time today. You've covered a lot of ground. And thank you for answering those questions that came in as well. I'm going to go ahead and say we'll close it out. If any questions do come in, you can email those to me, rachelc@engineerica.com. I'll put my email and I can pass those along to Dale. But anyway, thank you all so much for coming in today. We really appreciate your time. Keep an eye on our social media channels and your emails if you're subscribed to us regarding when the next session is. If you register for today's session, you should be getting those emails unless you've opted out. And we are going to be sending the recording in the next couple of days along with the slides that Dale has already provided to us. But thank you so much for another great session, and thank you, Dale. Thank you, Dale, for your time today. We hope that everybody has a great rest of your day, and we will see you at the next one. Bye, everyone.